before it would be effective. If you have minor changes, we can incorporate that tonight. If you would like, further study or significant changes, we need to bring it back.
Okay, great, thank you. Anything else?
Okay.
So the first one has the attachment 3 label at the bottom right corner, first page.
Second 3?
Yeah, first page, yeah.
So this one was a proposed, let's see, this was one where they had the proposed pool located 8 feet, less than 8 feet from the posts of that nearby trellis where I marked out the dark line. In order to accommodate this design, the applicant actually had to redesign and move the pool more towards the right. It got a little bit difficult. It's cut off, but the property wasn't regular shaped either, so the property line kind of cut into it, so they had to move it around a little to meet both the 10-foot requirement from the rear and also the 8-foot requirement from the post of that trellis. The next one was on the left side, you'll see a pool with the spa. And this one, the pool and spa were allowed as permitted because the spa is inside of the pool. You can see that it's all one structure. To the left, there's a darker line, that's a waterfall wall fountain. Under our old, before the code change, we didn't have this 8-foot requirement. So this was a plan where it was permitted. Under our current code, unless that wall was right on the edge of the pool and like the water was falling into the pool itself, we would make that be 8 feet away from the pool.
Unless it was actually part of the pool.
Right.
Right.
We could say it's structurally part of the pool.
They usually are.
Yeah, they can be, yeah.
They're called the water feature.
So the next one was, oh yeah, this one. This one was an outdoor room, which is circled
Right.
with the pen. This one was a little interesting. We met with him ahead of time, and as you can see, he had the outdoor kitchen and the outdoor room, as well as this pool vault that he was proposing. He, in his original plans, did not meet the 8-foot setback from the pool. So in this drawing, and it's a little hard to see, he actually created the eave of the outdoor room to cantilever over the pool so that we can consider it one structure and not have to meet 8 feet. So that was
Creative.
that was one of our interesting ones.
So, like in this case,
Mhm.
if there was a reduction in the 8-foot setback, and you might not know the answer to this, but ideally, what was he thinking? 4 feet, 6 feet? Do you have any idea?
If you can see where the posts are, the square kind of right to the left of the pool,
Yeah,
that's where the trellis was going to end.
okay.
So I mean, it really was right next to it, but it wasn't close enough that we could say it's one
Right,
structure.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
And this is an open trellis?
Open trellis.
It's not solid room?
No, so it was just 4 posts and the trellis roof.
Yes,
I
there's
think
no
they had
walls on the side.
So it's just a covered space?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no walls though.
no
Right.
walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a pool vault to the rear, and that we had to go out there and make sure that it was meeting the 8-foot requirement, because it originally was not. And so they had to,
Where's that?
to the left, the pool vault, the pool equipment vault.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they actually had to cut the rear post, they had to move in a little more so they could meet 8 feet from the rear post of the outdoor room to the wall of the
Okay.
pool vault.
Right, I got you.
Yeah.
All good examples.
So the next one was one that you're seeing, I think it's the second iteration, I think there were 3 on this one. So most of the items were redesigned to meet the requirements. So starting at the top left, you'll see that the fountain is 8 feet from the existing loggia. The pool equipment is 8 feet from the existing guest house. And then coming down on the plan, you'll see, they call it out as an arcade, it's kind of like a backward C, it's just the post. That they actually ended up removing from the plans because it did not meet the 8 feet setback from the pool. So on their most recent set, they completely removed that. And then at the very bottom on the left, you'll see the fire pit had to be 8 feet from the pool. And then 8 feet from the house, which as Lisa mentioned, isn't proposed to be changed, but the 8 feet from the pool.
On that one, the changes you're talking about making would include moving a fire pit as close as you wanted to the structure.
To the pool, not to the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to the pool.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's compliant with the building and fire codes.
Right.
Pardon me?
As long as it complies with the building and fire code.
We don't know what those are.
Well, there's so many,
I gotcha.
if this and that's,
Yeah.
I'd have to bring the building official.
And the fire department and fire marshal.
And I asked, just as a side note, I asked the building official about like a fire pit under a trellis. And he said that, again, it depends on the situation, that fire normally wouldn't approve that, but if there's a gas fire and it's a certain distance, then it could be approved, but that it's all about kind of the numbers and what the distances are and what the actual specifications of each
While
structure.
we're on that issue about fire pits, what happens if somebody wants to put seating around that fire pit? Is it 8 feet?
Under our current code,
If it's a movable chair that you buy at a nice store, like Home
That's
Depot,
okay.
you can put it anywhere you
Right.
want.
Right.
But if you're gonna build a seat wall taller than,
24 inches.
then it has to be
Like a
your
fixed
right.
bench.
Yeah.
A seating bench,
Correct.
okay.
Now, less than, or 24 inches and
24
less
24.
And less can
can
be
be anywhere.
anywhere.
A little planter wall you can sit on. But when you get taller than
Less than
24 inches,
24.
you
And this
gotta-
would reduce that.
Correct.
It would allow to do what you do with your chairs.
Right.
But if you wanted to build a seating wall with back on it, you sit there, toast your toes, you'd have to be back 8 feet.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Which means you'd
And you have to be as
cold,
tall
right?
as
You
the
have
head
to
of
be,
middle school in
right.
order to do that.
Yeah.
You have to be,
You have to be tall.
skilled.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is an aerial view. It's a little, I apologize, a little hard to read, but in the center of the plan, you see a large trellis outdoor structure. And on the left, you'll see a pizza oven with counters, and then I think it was a barbecue, yeah, on the right with counters. So this is the finalized plan, the original version, where you'll see where I ballooned the 6-foot measurement. That little wall wasn't there before, and one of my plan check comments to him.
What's that, Adrian?
Where you see where I have the 6-foot ballooned out on the
Yeah.
bottom,
Mhm.
there's a little wall, that's that 6-foot distance between the pizza oven counter and the trellis
Right.
on either side.
Mhm.
The original plan didn't have that, they were 3 separate structures. My plan check comment said you need to be 8 feet between the pizza oven counter and the trellis, and the barbecue counter.
In the
So they
kitchen.
made a building.
Or
yeah.
connected.
So they ended up connecting it with the 6-foot wall.
One big.
Yeah, so it made it bigger
Rather than.
and more massive,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think I put, on another note, we had one,
Put a wall, we just put a wall in there just to make it conform as
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That's, I presume that's not the property line.
no,
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 no, no.
No, it's in-
no, that's a setback, yeah. And on another note, what we've had happen before, I don't have a plan of it, is, someone, and again, this was, they didn't get the permit for the barbecue, so it's not like they followed the process, but they built it, I think it was 6 feet from the garage. So when I went to do a final inspection and notice the barbecue, they had to actually saw off part of the counter to meet the 8-foot separation. Either that or connect it to the garage, and so in order to even final it, they had to saw off part of the counter. Again, they did do it without permits, but a few years ago, that it met all the other setbacks, so it would have been okay. So the next one, so this is a conceptual plan that we're actually working with them right now. The area I clouded, they're proposing a new pool house and a trellis structure attached to it. You'll see that they put the posts of the trellis right on the edge of the pool so that it can all be considered one structure. Otherwise, they would have had to be 8 feet away from the water line at the pool. You'll also notice that there's a spa above the pool. This is existing, so it was permitted, as it is when it was built. Under our current code, that spa would have to be 8 feet away from the pool, which it's not here. The next one is 2 separate plans for the same pool residence. On the left was the original plan that they submitted, and you'll see my markings where it's 5 feet on the left, 6 feet on the right. This was one that, unfortunately, it was a contractor who'd done work in the town, but not for a few years. They were familiar with our old code, so they came in, they designed the 2 accessory buildings, which you can only see one of, based on the location of the pool. So when they came in and I said, you're not meeting the 8-foot requirement, it caused a bit of upset with the owners, but again, the contractor, wasn't aware of the new code. What it ended up resulting in, as you'll see to the right, is that they've actually pushed the pool closer to the heritage trees in order to meet the 8-foot setback. But again, the one on the right is the one I was able to approve. The one on the left, I was not able to approve. And I think that's it for those.
Great example, thank you.
Really great, man.
Yes.
A lot of homework you did on that one.
Thanks.
I had a question about fireplaces. Generally, new masonry fireplaces are kind of frowned upon. Do we have a rule? I looked in the code and I couldn't see a quantity that was allowed. I didn't
There's,
find it.
sure, so there's no limitation on fireplaces. There's, wood-burning fireplaces are not allowed on inside new homes, or any new wood-burning fireplaces are not allowed in the home. You could have a UL-rated gas fireplace inside the residence. You are allowed to have wood-burning fireplaces outside, or a gas fireplace outside, and there's not a limitation.
So
And that prohibition is really Bay Area quality, higher regulations than the town of Atherton. It's not a code
The
specific.
new homes that have fireplaces, they're all gas?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't know.
And that's pretty much what people want these
Yeah.
days.
Some people do.
But we're still allowing outdoor fireplaces.
Correct.
But that would be separate from this code, but that might be a good thing to look into also.
Okay, still a public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this matter?
Joe Comartin from 247 Paul Hemus. This is my 3rd time in front of you, so I don't have a whole lot to say other than to reiterate what I've said in past meetings, but I came, so might as well get up and say something. I would just like to, again, point out to you that I think that what we're talking about here is not something where the planning commission ever moved forward and said, hey, these things would be better 8 feet separated. I think it was an unintended consequence of the rewrite in 2009, something that was really more overlooked than anything else. As a guy who's built several homes here in town, and looking to do some remodeling on existing homes, this 8-foot separation does present a true design challenge. I think it presents a design challenge and does not do anything to address any sort of a grievance, or it's not in any way to the detriment of the greater community to have these structures closer together. So I would urge you to follow on to the recommendations of your planning staff who, after the developers out there, or I guess before us, are the people that see this in and out every day and understand the issues that Andrea just went through and enumerated for you. It seems maybe a little difficult, when you're thinking about it just conceptually, but there are very concrete examples in front of you that just show it's a silly design limitation that really is presented for no benefit. The one thing I would like to, I have sort of a question about, probably for you, Lisa, is my read of this recommendation from staff to the commission seems to suggest that they allow for 8 feet separation between accessory buildings and accessory structures, but that it would still restrict the proximity of accessory structures from the main building.
Correct.
Right.
So I'm not really clear where, what the problem there is. I do understand that you don't want to move an accessory building next to a main building, but to the extent that somebody has a family room and they want to have their fire pit and those seat walls in closer proximity to the main residence, or I guess the better example might even be an outdoor kitchen structure. I'm not sure, again, what the detriment is to the larger community. If anything, some of these activities that, instill a fair bit of revelry later on, you'd be actually taking those activities and pushing them further away from the main building footprint and closer to the property line.
So staff is not recommending changing that 8-foot separation as you indicated between the main building, but we will bring back at a future meeting some exception process for structures that are attached to the main building to encroach into the setbacks. So we could talk about that at a future meeting, and that could be the barbecue, outdoor kitchens, small decks,
AC.
AC units.
Okay.
We could bring that
So
back
that's
to
just part of
another
the thing to be
meeting.
shelved.
Correct.
Okay.
But it's for kind of more minor extensions, not a large trellis or anything else.
Okay.
Any further?
No, thank
Any
you.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Carol?
Thank you. Well, like Joe, mine is an extension of last time, and I thought you all had a very thoughtful comment. You asked for some photographs. What does this stuff look like? Because it really is different to see a photograph of something that exists versus a drawing. So I brought you some photographs of what we're talking about. And the first one is 91 Isabella. It's a house there. It's on the market a couple of weeks ago, and this is an aerial photograph. And it shows there are 6 copies there.
Good.
You know, move these down here a little bit.
Thank you. So I have,
Across there. And then it
That's
shows,
a pretty low-flying aerial.
I
Swoop in
think
with
it
your
shows the
helicopter.
concept of what we're talking about of getting that spa closer to the pool than 8 feet away. So, you know, a comment was made a little while ago that most of the spas are actually built into the pools. That hasn't actually been our experience. So we have built 13 houses and we're starting our 14th house on Stockbridge sometime in the fall. The last 3 that we've built, because they're existing homes and have to be torn down, all have a pool, not one had a spa, not one. So most of these older homes don't have a spa, but you don't want to have to tear up the whole pool. You want to restore the pool and add the spa. And so here you can see that that spa is about, as best as I can tell, 18 to 24 inches away, because I can count the size of the paver that's there. I can see the paver. And that's a very nice look, but if you had to put that spa 8 feet away, there isn't really continuity when you're jumping out of the pool and you want to jump right into the spa. You want enough room to be able to put your knee or your foot and then go right in, but you don't want to have to walk 8 feet away. So there's the example of the pool of what we're really asking for. The next set of photographs are of the fire pit with seating around it. And if you all could share some copies, there's 2 sets here.
fine, thank you.
Thank you. Share those. There's a whole bunch of photographs. And the key point, as I count across the number of stones or the number of pavers that are in there, most of these benches are about 3 feet away from the fire pit. Now, the fire pit has an extra foot of space around it. But the height is the interesting point. And again, I can count up the stones because I know the stones are about 8 inches. And these benches, the seat is higher than 24 inches. And so they range from, forgetting the back, from about 28 inches to about 3 feet, 32 inches or so. Well, the whole purpose of having the bench is to have an area of conversation, to have an area of warmth, and I don't think you want that area 8 feet away, because you don't have the warmth, and it's a little bit more difficult for the conversation. And then certainly if you put a back on, that's a heck of a lot more than 24 inches. And so if I look at, this is what the people of Atherton today really want, is some of these niceties, I would call it. And so, as Lisa said, and I took a look earlier at portable fire pits, you can buy a portable fire pit for $600 to $4,000. Most of these are all gas. The portable ones are propane. And we're not talking about wood-burning ones in general. So, what's the difference, of denying the people the ability to have the bench closer to the fire pit or having it taller when they can just go buy a portable one and put the chairs right beside it? You can do that today. So in terms of safety, there's no real issue there. I did want to ask Lisa and Andrea, do we have an issue on the air conditioning units being next to the house? There's no issue on that, right? Or is there an issue on the height?
What?
The air conditioning unit?
By the house?
Yeah, if it's right up next to the house, it needs to meet the setback requirements for the house. So what we're seeing sometimes is people are gonna design the house to the setback lines and then come in later with a little air conditioning unit. You can't do that. So what we would say is you either need to have it fully within the setbacks or 8 foot away from the house. And that was the item that we're gonna come back at a future
Okay.
meeting and discuss about
I wanna
some
address that then.
opportunities.
So I'll just leave my comments at these two, but I do encourage us to come back to where the barbecue can be, closer to the pool house, and the fire pit and the benches can be closer to the pool house, because I think that is something that the residents do want.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else desire to speak on this matter? No one else? We'll close the public hearing, bring it back here. Who wants to start this conversation?
I'll start. I'll start by saying great staff work, really great staff work to set this up, because it really puts a clear examples together and talks through part of your day, I guess, telling people. Here's what you cannot do, and let me tell you how many different ways you cannot do it. And so I appreciate that, and I think that what we're trying to do is come up with a modification of the ordinance that takes the reality of the feedback that we've experienced since the new rule and adjust for that. And I think that's totally a normal thing to do with a new ordinance that sort of settles in. And some of these designs were not as good to comply, I don't think. So that was the other aspect of it that was telling for me. So it sounds like a good idea to me.
Eric? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I agree with Eric, and Andrea, I like the examples that you gave us from the standpoint of showing the modifications that the residents were forced into because of the setbacks that were not as appealing as the alternative would have been without the setbacks. And I thought that was, those were some pretty stark examples that really clarified it. I think I was kind of aware of that, but to kind of see it down, and then the pictures are helpful too. Thank you.
Mary Beth?
I'm happy with the ordinance except for the inclusion of the fire pits and the fireplaces. Although I'm not opposed to having a bench next to a fire pit or fireplace. I think I really think we should not allow any outdoor wood-burning fireplaces. And I think that having a hot device within slipping distance of, a wet pavement from the pool is a mistake. I don't think that's a wise move. And so, I think that the wording should be changed to allow the seating area next to a fire pit, but a fire pit has to be 8 feet away from water.
Okay, thank you. Carol, thank you for the pictures on the seating. I think that shows it very graphically, very nicely. Good job. I kind of agree with Mary Beth on this one. On the revision to the ordinance, it says tennis courts, it goes on, guest houses, blah, 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 athletic courts, facilities, and fireplaces or pits. I think that should stay at 8 feet, but somewhere, as Mary Beth said, I think we should allow seating within, not to be limited to 8 feet. But how are you gonna do that wording?
I don't know.
Phil, you're saying that the fire pit itself should be
8 feet.
8 feet from the pool or the house,
For anything.
but everything else is okay.
Right.
Okay, so what do we, so here's what I'm trying to figure out. So, I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of adding what I would consider to be a regulation in this that would not be, that would sort of not be so much about, setback and things like that, but it's use. It's a use thing. So if we don't want to have any fire pits that have wood in the house, in the community, that's a separate ordinance.
As far as wood burning is concerned?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole different deal.
Right, so my thing is, we don't spend a lot of time within the boundaries of the square footage when they have the setback and everything else, figuring out if somebody's done something stupid to their design of their home, or something that we would think would be not optimal. we say if it's within 120 feet this way, and 10 feet this way, and 30 feet this way, you get to do what you want within that space.
Knock yourself out.
Right,
Right.
so I'm trying to figure out why we're focusing on fire pits, when I don't think it's, yes, fire pit's dangerous, pool's dangerous. We've had some pools that were 6 steps out of the sliding glass door. And so I'm going that seems more dangerous to me than a fire pit, within 6 feet of the front door sometimes. So I have a concern that we're trying to overwork the regulation on this when I don't think anybody's going to design something stupid, except that they've done some pretty interesting, not optimum designs because of the 8 feet. So I'm less comfortable trying to over narrow this thing than I am to get a good design altogether. So I've got a couple of examples that I've seen around that the older design, nobody's died from them. They weren't necessarily what we approved today, but they look pretty good. So I'm totally comfortable with this, with the idea that there's other regulatory things that are a factor to make it okay, like fire department and other places.
Yeah, okay, that's your opinion. I disagree. I think the fire pits and fireplaces should be 8 feet from the structure, whatever it is, pool, house. The seating can be closer than that, but that's the one I think should remain at 8 feet. So, there we are. Now, Lisa, you gotta do some wording changes.
Right.
So, will you do those and bring it back next time?
Yeah, I can bring back some wording changes and
So-
maybe 2
Yeah.
options
So-
for your next meeting, since I think we're at a 2-2 right now, and we may have an additional member at your next meeting. I
Yeah.
can bring 2 options
Yeah.
back.
With
And
or
would you
without?
also like the building official at the meeting?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
For some additional insight?
Because I tend to agree with Eric about, over legislating common sense. And then, but I also see the safety issues that Phil and Mary are bringing up.
Well, let me give you an example, all right? In the current situation, a trellis next to a pool is
Yeah.
a diving board. All right, so we've made it so that it's one thing, it's next to the pool, right above the pool, and although I've never done it,
You've wanted to do it.
I will never admit that I've never done it. It's an overly attractive nuisance model.
Particularly for young boys.
Yeah, right.
So you can make a case about any of this.
Well,
Yeah,
all I'm
that's what you're
saying is that what we've done is we've now had situations that I would say I wouldn't want to design like that. But, whatever we're gonna do that's gonna be, I'll use the word optimized, for the situation and the location. So for all the people that do it right, I'm not looking to get a rule in place for the few people that don't get it.
Right.
I'm looking to let the people of the community have their property.
Well, the way it's set up right now, everything except one item is changed. And that's the one item that remains at 8 feet is the fire. 95% change of what it's been.
All right, well, so let's put it this way. If we go ahead and approve it tonight, we at least get 95% fixed.
That's true.
All right, so I'm okay with that, but I also think that this thinking is something we got to think about in the future about how we're thinking about using these things from a standpoint of legislation as opposed to
Well, let me go back a bit.
design.
I think I said it the last time. A lot of time and money was spent at earlier days going through this, and maybe this slipped through the crack and maybe it didn't. But that's what many public hearings came up with. And here we sit, 3, 4, or 5 of us, trying to amend an ordinance that we thought was pretty well worked out.
It was.
All those years ago.
And it was, except there was one area, right?
Yeah, well, there's 3 more on the docket that we haven't touched yet. This whole thing, so we gotta deal with those sooner or later. So if we wanna try and deal with it tonight, leave the fire pits out as 8 feet, that's fine with me. If we wanna wait and see what happens on 2 options for next month, that's fine with me too. Look at this here.
I'm okay to move without the fire pit at this point because I think it's better to make it more, so theoretically then that makes it for some major number, as long as the fire pit, change the fire pit, does it change it, not change the fire pit makes it so the benches can't be within 8 feet of it, right?
Right.
Well, we put the benches in at less than 8 feet seating.
Well, yeah, we have to come back with that wording though.
Okay, we want to do that.
I'm sorry, I lost where the commission is.
Well, we're talking about, instead of 2 options, come back with revised wording on 1 without the fire pits, but including seating can be less than 8 feet around the fireplace.
So it's defining the fire pit as the seating
Yeah,
and
the
the
fire pit
pit.
separation.
Yeah,
Fire pit must be 8 feet from any other structure with the exception of outdoor seating. Something like that.
Well, you
Is
could
that what
say
you're
you
saying?
consider the seating,
as part of the fire pit.
Yeah.
seating within, I don't know, however many feet. Any seating within 8 feet is, I don't know.
Right.
But Eric, I don't think that it matters what we do tonight, because it's not gonna take effect.
Well, it would go
If
to,
we approve it tonight, it still has to go to the council, doesn't it?
sure, yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
once it
For
goes
2
to the
readings.
council, you're done with it. It'll go
Right.
to the council with
So-
a certain amount of information
And
and
they can
then.
So we've got these other items we have to consider, and it's not gonna go to council till we get everything.
No,
No,
no, it's going piecemeal.
Yeah,
Is it going to?
yeah.
we
yeah,
could
we've
take
already-
it separate.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've taken the last item.
yeah, it's gone.
Separate.
Right.
So this would go, perhaps our next council meeting, and be read, and then have a rereading, and then 30 days beyond that, so it could be September or so before this went into effect. So, what's your pleasure?
Oh,
If there's
yeah.
kind of a two-two, I mean, it
Right.
can be a problem.
Yeah, that's why we could bring it to the next
Yeah.
meeting.
You want to
Yeah,
bring
we
back
No,
wording?
If you prefer, and to give Lisa a chance to work out the wording, and since you will have an additional commissioner at the next meeting, presumably, and since there seems to be a little tension, it might give you an additional chance to work through it at the next meeting if you wanted.
That's fine.
That sounds like the right
I'd like to ask Andrea, with all the work that she did in research and putting together these packets, what you saw regarding this fire pit thing that we're talking about.
I think you've hit on it. I mean, we definitely have safety concerns, but I mean, as staff, we trust that fire and building will address those. One thing that popped into my head when you were discussing it is if you move everything forward but leave fire pits 8 feet apart, as is under our current code, someone could come in and build, assuming it met fire and building codes, build a roof over it, which would then make the fire pit part of the structure, so then it's exempt from the 8 feet. So it gets back into these, sitting there piecemealing things with people trying to just make the numbers work. And under our current code, if there's a way, per the fire code and building code, to put a cover over a fire pit, if they're doing some big outdoor structure, we do consider that one structure. So I could see more people trying to find creative ways to incorporate fire pits into other structures to make it one structure for setback purposes. And that's really what people are doing now with all of the structures, is kind of trying to figure out a way to work the numbers.
Use the rural problem.
Yeah.
There's some fire regulation, you can't do that, they'll cover over an open fire.
Well, I asked, and I did ask the building official, and he said with gas pits, there's certain regulations where it could be allowed, but that no one really wants to do that anyways. But that there are, he said he hasn't seen it, but there's definitely, they do gas pits and certain fire rated materials, and there's
That's a major-
ways to do
That's a
it.
major what if.
It is,
Look at
it is, yeah.
I guess,
Well, we see fireplaces with the flu.
oh,
We
fireplace.
see those designs as well.
And I guess I'm asking, just in your research, how often do you see something in a fire pit that's dangerously close to a pool area or a situation that Barry brought up?
Oh, like where they come in and I tell them, I've never seen them put it right up next to a pool, but I mean, 4 or 5 feet maybe. But again, I have them move it, in that case, or, and fireplaces, not so much fire pits. If they're outdoor fireplaces and they're not structurally attached to the pool house, let's say, I have to make them move at 8 feet. So now they're trying to make a trellis connect to the
Right.
chimney so that it's all
Right.
one.
And all snowballs.
But I've never seen anyone design a fire pit right next to the
Right.
pool,
Mhm.
but less than 8 feet, definitely,
Up to 8 feet.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I guess a solution is to let it go to Lisa for.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, pardon me?
No, I was just thanking Andrew.
For rewording and bring back next month. That suit everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, without the fire pit fireplace, at 8 feet. I mean, at 8 feet, I'm sorry. Okay?
Well,
Yeah, so I'll bring back
two
what we
versions.
have right here, as well as the version that has, I guess, open fire pits shall be at least 8 feet from other structures with the exception of seating areas, something like that,
Which are integral with the fireplace or something
Yeah.
like that.
which are designed
Or-
as a part.
Or fire pits defined as an individual pit or pits with seating. You know, the definition of the fire pit
Yeah,
has to
play
do
with the-
with, the element here that is the most significant is we define seating separate from a fire pit. And that causes the 8-foot rule. If a fire pit is defined in our terms with or without seating, then you get around the 8-foot thing right away.
Yeah, so put a definition that a fire pit may contain
Yeah.
seating,
Fixed seating.
fixed seating,
Yeah,
less
fixed
than
seating.
8 feet. Okay.
And then that, if you want that to be 8 feet away from everything, then at least that says, okay, fine. You know, you got a fire pit, we're gonna force you into some level of safety that we think is appropriate.
So this is really just for open fire pits and not for fireplaces with a flue,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I think.
Hear
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Fire
All right.
pit, open.
Open
Yeah.
fire pits. Okay. So I would, if that's the direction, I'd like a motion, because it is a hearing that we need to continue.
Make a motion to continue this to our next, to our next meeting and provide revisions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Motion's approved. Okay, next item on our agenda is, general plan.
Aye.
Oh,
I was trying to decide which way to vote, so I'll stay on.
oh, you did. Okay, I started to run away without you there. Okay, this is the capital improvement, whether or not it meets our master plan. This is not a public hearing, this is a discussion item. Good, we're by ourselves. Who's this?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So the state planning and zoning law requires that the planning commission review the capital improvement program for consistency with the town's general plan. And what you have before you, I believe, is a 5-year capital improvement program. And I've just generally described some of the projects, and there's some areas where we have consistency with the general plan and other areas where the general plan just really doesn't even talk about it. So I guess the main point is it's not in conflict with the general plan. And some of the CIP items, you don't have a lot of specificity, specifically implement park master plan. Well, we haven't seen the park master plan, so we don't quite know what that is yet. So this is a finding that